Hey everyone, so I'm finally binding a journal out of that Tomoe River paper that I got. So I'm starting here just by like separating it into piles of the signatures, and then I'm folding it. I think I'm doing 5 sheets per signature because it's nice thin paper, so you can kind of get away with more pages per signature. And it's pretty easy to fold because it's so thin. Yeah, you can see just how thin it is there. Yeah, so I think I ended up with 5 signatures. So here I'm kind of flipping them around so I can press them with a nice heavy book so they get nice flattened and creased. Alright, so here I'm measuring out the spacing between the holes for the binding. And this little thing I'm using here is a jig that I 3D printed. It has holes like every ½ centimeter, so it gets perfect punches there. Everything is like perfectly centered. It makes it so much easier. I just take my awl and kind of stick it in the hole and it pokes it. I just have to use the same holes every single time and everything lines up perfectly. Yeah, see, look how perfectly aligned those are. So much easier. Alright, and here I'm gonna press it again just to get those folds nice and creased. Now it's time to bind it. So I'm actually using upholstery thread here, which is kind of terrible for this. It's really hard to work with. Yeah, so you can see here when I'm trying to tie this knot, the thread is like really stiff and it's hard to work with, so it's pretty difficult to get the knot, but I got it, so whatever, I'm used to it. I'll probably get some better thread soon. And then here we are attaching the second signature. And this is where I started kind of noticing a problem with binding with the Tomoe River paper. Since it's so thin, it really kind of flops around as you're kind of stitching it together. So I had to really like fight it to work with it. And it's kind of, it's just hard to work with because it didn't really stay where I wanted it to. Like as I would try to put in a stitch, it would kind of wobble around. I think maybe in the future I might do even more pages per signature. I think that might help. I don't think 5 sheets was enough. So I think the stitch I'm using here is called a kettle stitch. It's just where you kind of put the thread through the holes and then kind of tie it to the stitches below it. Yeah, and then after I got a few signatures together, it kind of stiffened up and I kind of got in my groove more and went a bit quicker and easier. Yeah, and so that's the text block done. Those nice stitches. I think it turned out pretty decently. Alright, and now next step here is to glue the spine together. And I'm just using Elmer's glue here. It is not the best thing to use. It kind of sucks. I mean, it's not the worst for this because it's something small to glue, but when I get farther in the project, it's not fun to work with. So you'll see that. Alright, and now, after that's dried, it's time to put on the end papers. And these are the papers that kind of get glued to the cover of the book. So I guess they kind of keep the text block onto the cover. I'm just using like construction paper, which is definitely not ideal, but it's what I have, so whatever. And then I'm just trimming it, because normally you would like use a big paper guillotine to like just chop off the edges of the whole text block to keep it nice and flat and smooth. But I don't have that, and the alternative is to cut through several layers of paper with a knife, and that's just a pain in the butt, so I kind of skip that. Just deal with the uneven edges. It's not too much of a big deal for me. It just kind of looks ugly. Alright, and then here, this is... I think this fabric that I'm using is actually fusible interfacing. That's super old, so it doesn't fuse anymore. And you just kind of glue this onto the spine to give it more strength, I guess. Because otherwise it would be just the papers gluing it into the cover, which paper wears out pretty quickly. And again, I'm just using more of that Elmer's glue. That's what I have. Alright, next up, this is one of my favorite parts, and this is to sew in the end bands, which is pretty complicated, but it's a lot of fun, and it looks pretty cool. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting separators, I guess markers, whatever, into the middle of the sections, so I can guide my needle there when I start sewing on the bands. So these are like little like leather cords that go into the core of the bands, and you just like kind of wrap it around. It's really complicated how you do it. I had to watch the tutorial like 5 times while I was doing this, and this was like my 5th attempt at doing it. So it's not easy, but it's pretty fun. And also this upholstery thread is even more frustrating to stitch these on than it is to stitch the binding, because it just does not like to stay. It's just so hard to work with. It just makes this so much more difficult than it really needs to be. Because instead of just doing the stitches, you're also fighting with a thread the entire time. Once the stitching is done, you just kind of glue it down so it doesn't, I don't know, untie itself. Alright, and now that that's pretty much the entire text block done, now it's time to start on the case binding. So I'm just taking measurements here so I know roughly how big to make things. And this is not bookboard, it's actually the back of a poster frame that broke, so I'm just using that. It's pretty similar stuff, I guess. It's just kind of a hard card stuff, whatever. So here I'm trying to make sure everything is square and straight, so I don't have a crooked cover. 'Cause nobody wants a crooked book. And I'm just kind of double checking, making sure everything fits. And it was a little off, so I just went and fixed it. And now it's time to cut it out. And then I'm just double checking again to make sure everything fits right. Now it's time for the fabric. Now I don't have any specific but cloth, so this is just some normal like woven cotton fabric stuff that I have left over from other projects. Yeah, I'm just marking the spaces where it needs to go so I can move them off and then put down the glue. And this is where the glue starts to become a real problem, since it's in such a small bottle and it's like so sticky, it's hard to spread it right, so it tends to just kind of get globbed on there. And it did end up like seeping through parts of the fabric, so there's like some weird gluey spots on the covers. But whatever, it's just my journal. It doesn't need to be perfect. And then now I cut it out. And the first time I did a case binding like this, I did not leave enough fabric around, so it was almost impossible to kind of glue the edges over. So I've been kind of leaving a bit too much lately, but I think it's better than not having enough. And again, just checking to make sure everything fits. Because this can be a pretty scary part, because if you mess up and it doesn't fit, you kind of have to redo a lot of the work. And I don't like having to do that. Alright, so now that the case is all glued up with its fabric, it's time to glue in the text block. Now this is where the glue really becomes a problem, because I have to put it on such a big area, and you need to have like a really thin, like even layer, and this glue does not like to do that, so it really globs up in areas, and that really wrinkles the paper really bad, which also, since it's like construction paper, it's even more prone to that, so it's pretty ugly. It turns out pretty ugly, but I mean, it works. And such since it's such a small bottle, getting out enough glue to do this is just such a pain in the butt. I just ended up letting it sit there and drip out onto the piece of paper I was using. And then I press it and let it sit for a while, and then the wax paper I was using to try to stop glue seeping into the book actually got glued to the book, so I had to peel that off. And you can see here the glue kind of messing up those end papers. So now the book is pretty much done, and it's just the finishing touches of kind of writing and drawing stuff on the inside. And of course labeling it. And so I always number the pages on my journals. I just do the right hand side. Makes it pretty easy compared to having to do all of the pages. And it's a pretty fun process, especially when you've made your own book. You can, you know, get to flip through each page and write on them. So you kind of, I don't know, you get to know the book a bit. Alright, the next up is the index. So this is, I have a spot for every single page, so that I can go back and write what contents I put in it. And I do this for all of my journals, because I do go back and kind of reread it. So it's good to know, you know, when when and where things are. And so I'm doing a 5mm spacing here, 5mm line or whatever. And then I go in and write each page number. And this is probably my favorite part of the video, because I mean, look how fun that is. I love writing numbers. And it's just so satisfying when they're all in a row like that. Yeah, I mean, like, look how fun that is. And the third page of the index, a lot smaller. Usually I'm able to get it into 2 pages, but since this paper is so thin, there's like way more pages per journal. Alright, and then that's the book done. Pretty much. Oh yeah, and here I am doing some thumbnail stuff. All right, so yeah, that was my making the book, and I have it right here. And I've been writing in it for about 20 pages now, and I'm really loving it. The Tomoe River paper is just, I actually really like it. I don't know what I was thinking with my first video about it, saying that I didn't enjoy it. I think maybe I was just expecting it to be something different, and that was just disappointing. But to actually write in it, I really like it. I like the kind of feedback it gives. It just, I don't know, it feels, I don't know, nice to write in. And then the ink, oh my gosh. Like, there's like shading and stuff, and it's like even a little bit of sheen. And like, I've never gotten sheen out of this ink before, which is just pretty cool. Pretty excited about it. I can't wait to use all of my different pens and inks in this. So yeah, I'm glad I finally got Tomoe River. And then some of the problems with it that I was talking about, like with how thin the paper is, binding it and gluing it, it's kind of made it sort of like kind of wobbly on the inside there by the binding. I don't know, it's kind of hard to see it on camera, but when you're writing in it, it's kind of, I don't know, you can see the sort of wobbliness of the paper. I think it's worse kind of by the edges, like by the end papers, since it was so close to so much glue, kind of gets sort of wobbly. So I think I might need to just, I don't know, be more careful in the future with binding it. Yeah, so I'm definitely going to be making more journals with Tomoe River. Yeah, so thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like and subscribe, because I am probably going to be doing more bookbinding videos like this. I have quite a few projects that I'm wanting to do. So, and I'll definitely be getting better bookbinding supplies and stuff, like better thread and all that, and glue. Definitely glue. So, yeah, stick around if you want to see some more of that. So, thank you for watching.